In a major blow to America's seafood industry, Alaska's Department of Fish and Game has canceled the winter snow crab season in the Bering Sea due to falling numbers. While restaurant menus will suffer, the greatest impact will be to the economy, to the tune of $200 million. For tonight's Eye on America, CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti traveled to Alaska to investigate.
Autumn is a time for stocking up on Alaska's Kodiak archipelago. Its famous namesake bears feast on a buffet of salmon ahead of winter. And in the nearby fishing port, one of the largest in the country, Gabriel Prout and his family had mapped out crab season.
We'll leave our slip here in Dog Bay, Kodiak, Alaska, head out around Spruce Island.
But the odds of Prout's ship ever leaving his slip are now slim to none, which could also be said about the snow crab population that makes up most of his business. An estimated 1 billion crabs mysteriously disappeared in just 2 years. That's a 90% plunge.
Where have the snow crab gone? Did they run up north to get to that colder water? Did they completely cross across the border? Did they walk off the continental shelf on the edge there of the Bering Sea? We don't know.
The first reaction was, is this real? You know, we looked at it was almost a flat line.
As a researcher with the Alaska Department of Fish and Game,
Let's see what we've got for crab.
It's Ben Daly's job to monitor the health of the state's fisheries, which produce 60% of the nation's seafood. His team is now investigating where the crabs have gone.
But we're trying to look for causes. Disease is one possibility.
Daly also points to climate change. Alaska is the fastest warming state in the country and is losing billions of tons of ice each year, critical for crabs who need cold water to survive.
Environmental conditions are changing rapidly. We've seen some warm conditions in the Bering Sea the last handful of years, and we're seeing a response in a cold-adapted species. So it's pretty obvious that this is connected.
We need a rapid relief financial program to get us through disasters like this, much like farmers get during crop failures or communities get soon after a hurricane or flood.
What does a person do whose life is dependent on the ocean when the ocean stops giving?
Hope and pray.
Hope and pray the snow crabs return, and his way of life continues. For Eye on America, I'm Jonathan Vigliotti on Kodiak Island.
That is AOC dancing off her own constituents at a town hall this week as they are voicing their concerns about how far left or how they're concerned because she gave money to Ukraine and was in agreement with that, like all Democrats did. But they think she needs to be more left. So let's bring in Fox News contributor Laura Trump to react to this. Hey, Laura.
Ainsley.
Interesting response, right? They're saying she's got to go, that she's not left enough, and she just started dancing, trying to get them to talk. What's your reaction?
Well, I mean, I think the interesting thing, Ainsley, is that there are so many people who have actually realized how bad some of AOC's policies have been for them in District 14 in New York. And, you know, she is truly the typical politician. This is a person who got elected, went to Washington, D.C., forgot about her constituents back home. And I think a lot of people are very upset with that. You look at some of the policies that AOC has supported or causes that she has championed. Don't forget, this is an area of New York that is riddled with crime. Crime is overrunning the streets in New York, and yet AOC, of course, was a champion and continues to champion defunding the police. We know that her push for Green New Deal and everything green combined with her support for these massive exorbitant spending bills is one of the reasons that we have incredibly high inflation in America. It's hurting all of us across the country. I think the people in her district are no different, and they are feeling the impact of that. Don't forget, AOC ran out Amazon from New York. That was going to bring around 30,000 jobs to the area. And so I think there's a whole plethora of issues that people have with AOC, but she clearly, Ainsley, feels like she has nothing to be worried about. She is not concerned that people in her own district and her constituents are frustrated with her because she feels she is a shoo-in, that she will win this election no matter what happens. And the truth is that does not have to be the case. This District 14, typically only 37% of people show up and vote in the midterm elections. So if you live in this district and you want to vote AOC out and vote Tina Forte, her opponent, in, get out and vote on November 8th. This does not have to be your representative anymore if you get out and vote.
You're right. Her reaction is kind of like, I don't care. I'm still having fun with this. There doesn't appear to be any concern and doesn't want to listen to those constituents. She's won twice, though, with more than 70% of the votes for District 14. So she's I'm sure she's very confident she's going to win again. It's so woke here in New York. And that's why you left to go down to Florida. Thank you so much, Laura. Great to see you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Top former Trump political advisor Steve Bannon sentenced to 4 months in prison and a $6,500 fine for criminal contempt of Congress. Now, Bannon was held in contempt for refusing to testify to the House committee investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol and for his failure to turn over documents that the committee requested. NBC News Justice and correspondent Ken Delaney joins us now just from outside that courthouse in D.C. It's good to see you there, Ken. First off, what exactly was the sentencing that prosecutors had hoped for versus what Bannon actually got?
Good afternoon, Morgan. This is a pretty big victory for prosecutors because they asked for 6 months, which was the maximum under the guidelines, and they got 4. Now, they didn't get the fine they wanted. They had sought a $200,000 fine, and they got a $6,500 fine. But a 4-month sentence in a case like this, a misdemeanor conviction, is seen by legal experts as pretty significant. This is the first time anyone has been convicted and sentenced for contempt of Congress in more than a half century. Now the qualifier, the judge also stayed the sentence pending appeal. So what that means is that Steve Bannon walked out of this courthouse a free man and will not have to serve this sentence anytime soon. He gets to pursue his appeal, arguing that he should have been allowed to argue before the jury that he was just relying on the advice of his lawyers, Morgan.
And Ken, I mean, what were the actual documents that he refused to turn over to the committee? I mean, has Bannon or his legal team even said anything about this sentencing or those documents?
Well, the committee wanted both Bannon's testimony and they wanted documents, communications in connection with his efforts to try to help Donald Trump overturn the election. Remember, the day before January 6th on his radio show, he predicted that all hell was going to break loose. They wanted to ask him about that. And, of course, Bannon did react very forcefully on his way out of the courthouse after the sentencing. Take a listen.
We'll have a very vigorous appeals process. I've got a great legal team, and there'll be multiple areas of appeal. On November 8th, there's going to have judgment on the illegitimate Biden regime, and quite frankly, Nancy Pelosi and the entire committee.
So if Bannon wins his appeal, essentially what is likely to happen is a new trial. We'd have to do this all over again. But prosecutors say the evidence in this case is overwhelming, even if he does cite the advice of counsel defense.
That political turmoil there in Britain, where Prime Minister Liztruss announced her resignation just 44 days after taking office, sending shockwaves throughout Europe. Our foreign correspondent James Longman is in London with more on this. And James, the race to replace Truss is heating up, and now there's this familiar name back in the mix.
Yeah, that's right, Cecilia. Liz Truss tried to cling on to power, but in the end, confidence in her just crumbled away shockingly fast. She is now the shortest-serving Prime Minister in British history. The tabloids have had their fun with it. There was a countdown on a lettuce head to see which of the two would survive. Well, the lettuce won. And that image was even beamed onto the Houses of Parliament there behind me last night. But now the very serious business of trying to find her replacement has begun. The Conservative Party have expedited this process because of the seriousness of this situation, and we will have a new Prime Minister next week. But it is all proving very controversial because Boris Johnson, that name you mentioned, he is in the running. Now, he's still very popular here, even though he was kicked out of office just 6 weeks ago for lying. He has huge name recognition, but he wouldn't be a unifying candidate. Rishi Sunak, the former Treasury Secretary, he's also in the mix. I think it's fair to say the two men represent both sides of the very divided Conservative Party. But with an ethics investigation hanging over his head, can the Conservative Party really take a risk now on Boris Johnson? Anything seems possible. George?
That sure does seem right. Okay, James, thanks very much.
The long-awaited subpoena for Donald Trump is ready to go. Let's go to Capitol Hill and NBC's Ali Vitale. What's the latest, Ali?
Yeah, Chris, this subpoena officially being issued from the committee to the former president. This comes a week after the committee voted during a public hearing to actually move forward with this step. But they take great pains in the letter, which is roughly 10 pages and also includes the subpoena itself. That's rare. We haven't seen the actual subpoenas included in these filings in the past when they've issued them. But what they try to do here is make clear that while this is clearly a ratcheting up in terms of their goal of speaking to the former president, it's not unprecedented for former presidents or even sitting presidents to come before congressional committees and either submit documents or to testify. They lay out two important dates here, Chris, one before the election and one after. Certainly there will be many in the political sphere who point to that immediately, but they have November 4th on the calendar at this point for the day that they want Trump to comply with their request for records. Some on the committee have said that they think those could even be more illuminating than any kind of deposition with the former president itself. But they also asked Trump to come in and talk to them himself in person, saying that November 14th is going to be the deadline for that. And there's some really striking language in this letter, Chris. They're not shying away from using the word "you" when leveling allegations at the former president's feet. Of course, this comes after all of those multiple hearings, and they point to that in part using language saying, in short, you were at the center of the first and only effort by any U.S. president to overturn an election and obstruct the peaceful transfer of power, ultimately culminating in a bloody attack on our own Capitol and on the Congress itself. That is part of the letter that's been issued from the committee, from Chairman Benny Thompson and Vice Chair Liz Cheney to the former president, now Donald Trump.